The great hall of Nexus Station buzzed with alien voices. Hundreds of different species filled the massive chamber, their bodies creating a sea of strange shapes and colors. Some looked like walking crystals that chimed when they moved. Others had 6 legs and wings that clicked together rapidly. A few floated in the air like clouds of gas that changed colors when they spoke. Hyunwoo Kim stood at the center podium, his human form looking small among the giants. His dark suit was simple compared to the exotic clothing and natural armor of the other beings. Behind him, large screens showed Earth's blue and green surface. The image seemed peaceful and quiet next to the chaos of alien technology surrounding them. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Hyunwoo began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation devices. Today, humanity requests full membership in your alliance. We come in peace, offering our knowledge and friendship. A loud chime echoed through the hall. One of the crystal beings stepped forward, its body sparkling like a diamond under the lights. Human ambassador, it said, its voice sounding like music made of broken glass. Your species is new to space travel. What makes you think you belong among civilized worlds? Hyunwoo smiled politely. We believe our values and military code show that humans can be trusted partners in keeping peace across the galaxy. The crystal being laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Military code? You mean rules for fighting wars? How amusing. Behind Hyunwoo, Captain Dongmin Park stepped forward. His marine uniform was clean and pressed with ribbons showing years of service. His face stayed calm even as more aliens began to laugh. Yes, honored delegate. Humanity has spent thousands of years developing laws for warfare. We believe fighting should have limits. The insect-like creatures began clicking their wings faster, making sounds like rapid typing. Their leader, a being twice as tall as any human, spoke with a voice that buzzed. Limits in war? This is foolishness. War is about winning completely or dying completely. There is no middle ground. Dr. Yoonji Lee, who had been quiet until now, opened a tablet and began reading. Our laws include protection of civilians during combat. We do not target hospitals, schools, or religious buildings. We treat prisoners with respect. We use only the force needed to achieve our goals. The floating gas beings swirled faster, their colors shifting to what the translation system said meant laughter. One of them spoke in a voice like wind through caves. You handicap your own warriors? You give advantages to your enemies? This explains why your species took so long to reach the stars. More laughter filled the hall. The crystal beings chimed louder. The insect creatures clicked their wings so fast it sounded like rain on metal. Even some of the smaller species that looked almost human were shaking their heads and smiling. Hyunwoo felt heat rise in his face but kept his voice steady. These are not handicaps. They are principles that make us strong. Strong, the crystal delegate's voice became sharper, like breaking glass. You are weak. You limit yourselves when you should be limitless. You show mercy when you should show power. No wonder your species fights such small wars. Captain Dongmin took another step forward. Our wars may seem small to you, but they taught us important lessons. We learned that some victories cost too much. We learned that how you win matters as much as winning itself. The insect leader buzzed with what sounded like amusement. Philosophy for weaklings. When the Zephyrian swarm wants something, we take it. When the Veltar Empire needs resources, we claim them. When the Nebulan Collective faces enemies, we remove them completely. This is how real civilizations behave. And how many worlds have burned because of this thinking? Dr. Yoonji asked quietly. The question made the hall suddenly quiet. The laughter stopped. For a moment, only the hum of the station's engines could be heard. Then the crystal delegate spoke again, its voice cold and sharp. Burned worlds are the price of progress. Weak species step aside for strong ones. This is natural law. Natural law, Hyunwoo repeated slowly. And where does that leave room for growth? For learning? For becoming better than what we were? The gas beings swirled into new patterns, their colors showing confusion. Better? What is better than total victory? Captain Dongmin answered. Victory where your enemies can still respect you afterward. Victory where your own people can still respect themselves. Victory that doesn't require you to become a monster. This brought fresh waves of laughter. The insect creature's wings clicked so fast they became a blur. Monsters! Their leader buzzed. We are not monsters. We are efficient. We are practical. We survive and thrive while others worry about respect and principles. You think we are naive? Hyunwoo said, looking around the hall at all the alien faces. You think our laws make us weak and helpless. You believe we will be easy targets for any species that wants to test us. Yes, the crystal delegate said simply. That is exactly what we think. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. I see, thank you for your honesty. Humanity will remember this conversation. Dr. Yoonji closed her tablet with a soft click. Captain Dongmin stepped back into position behind the ambassador. Both humans looked calm, but something had changed in their posture. Something harder had entered their eyes. If there are no more questions, Hyunwoo said, we will return to our ship and prepare our report for Earth. The Council will have our answer about membership within 7 standard days. As the humans walked toward the exit, alien voices began talking among themselves. Most sounded amused and dismissive. A few sounded thoughtful. None of them sounded worried. Outside the Great Hall, Captain Dongmin activated a small communication device. Admiral, this is Park. Yes, sir, it went exactly as expected. Yes, they laughed. No, sir, they don't suspect anything. Recommend we proceed to Phase 2. Hyunwoo looked back at the Great Hall one more time. Through the transparent walls, he could see the aliens still talking and laughing. They have no idea what they just did, do they? No, sir, Captain Dongmin replied quietly. They think they understand humans. They think we showed them everything important about us in there. Dr. Yoonji checked her tablet again, reviewing messages from Earth. Intelligence reports confirm the Zephyrian swarm is moving ships toward our colonial space. They're taking the bait. Poor bastards, Captain Dongmin said under his breath. Captain, Hyunwoo warned. Sorry, sir. Poor, unfortunate beings who are about to learn a very important lesson about the difference between choosing to be civilized and being unable to be anything else. The 3 humans walked toward their ship in silence. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued to laugh and plan, completely unaware that they had just made the worst mistake in their species' history. The morning sun cast long shadows across the wheat fields of New Busan. Dr. Taehyun Kang stood on his porch, drinking coffee and watching the farming robots move through the golden grain. The colony world looked peaceful, almost like the old Earth countryside his grandmother used to describe. Children ran to school down dirt roads while their parents prepared for another day of harvesting. Lieutenant Ji-hoon Nam was checking perimeter sensors when the first alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed across his control panel as dots appeared on the orbital scanner, dozens of them moving fast toward the planet. Colonel Choi, he called into his radio. We have incoming ships. Multiple contacts heading straight for us. Colonel So-young Choi was in the command bunker within minutes, her hair still wet from the shower. How many ships, Lieutenant? 47 confirmed, ma'am. Zephyrian design, moving in attack formation. So-young felt her stomach drop. The Zephyrian swarm was known throughout the galaxy for their brutal tactics. They didn't negotiate. They didn't take prisoners unless they wanted to make examples, and they certainly didn't follow any rules of war. Send immediate message to Earth Command, she ordered. Request backup and prepare all civilians for evacuation. The first ships landed just outside New Seoul, the colony's main city. They came down like meteors, their insect-shaped hulls crashing into buildings and streets. From each ship poured hundreds of Zephyrian warriors, their 6 legs carrying them forward faster than any human could run. Dr. Taehyun was loading children onto evacuation transports when he saw them coming. The creatures looked like giant beetles crossed with spiders, their black shells reflecting the morning light. They moved with horrible purpose, heading straight for the school. Get the children to the shelters, he shouted. But it was too late. The Zephyrians reached the school first. Instead of simply destroying it, they surrounded the building and set up large screens. Soon images of terrified children appeared on every public screen in the colony. The alien commander spoke in buzzing, translated words. Humans of New Busan, the voice crackled through speakers. Your species thinks it is clever with its rules and laws. You will learn that such weakness has no place in a real war. These younglings will be our guests until your military surrenders completely. Colonel So-young watched the broadcast from her command center, her hands shaking with rage. Options, Lieutenant Nam? Ji-hoon looked at his tactical display. We could storm the school, ma'am, but they have the children positioned as shields. Any assault would result in civilian casualties. What about precision strikes? They've positioned themselves perfectly. Any weapon we use will hit the children too. On the screens, the Zephyrian commander continued its broadcast. To show we are serious about our demands, we will demonstrate what happens to those who resist. The humans watched in horror as several adult prisoners were brought before the cameras. The Zephyrians began torturing them slowly, making sure every detail was broadcast across the colony. Their screams echoed through the command center speakers. "Turn it off," So Young whispered. "Ma'am, we need to see what they're doing to plan our response." I said, "Turn it off." The screens went dark, but everyone in the room knew the torture was continuing. Dr. Taehyun's voice came over the radio, thick with emotion. "Colonel, they have my nephew, 8 years old. Please, you have to do something." So Young closed her eyes. Every military course she had taken, every rule of engagement she had memorized said the same thing. Minimize civilian casualties. Avoid collateral damage. Use only proportional force. But the Zephyrians were using those same rules against them. "Lieutenant, what's the status on evacuation?" 60% of civilians are in the underground shelters, ma'am. But the Zephyrians are hunting down the rest. They're not just capturing them. Ji-hoon's voice broke. "They're doing terrible things, and broadcasting all of it." More screens activated around the colony. The Zephyrians had captured the hospital and were torturing patients in their beds. They had taken over the elementary school and were making the children watch their parents being hurt. Every image was designed to break the human spirit. "They want us to break our own rules," So Young said quietly. "They want us to attack without caring about civilian casualties. What if we send in special forces? Small teams that could—" "Look at the tactical situation, Lieutenant. They've positioned themselves perfectly. Every strong point they hold has human shields. Every target we might hit has innocents nearby. They studied our military doctrine and used it against us." Dr. Taehyun's voice came over the radio again, but this time it was different. Harder. "Colonel, I need to speak with you privately. Immediate priority." So Young stepped into a secure communication booth. Taehyun's face appeared on the small screen, and she was shocked by what she saw. The gentle doctor who grew flowers in his spare time looked like a different person. His eyes were cold and focused in a way that made her uncomfortable. "Colonel, I need to tell you something about my background. Before I became a doctor, before I came to this colony, I worked for Earth military intelligence. Specifically, I worked on something called the Unrestricted Protocol. I don't know what that is. Doctor? Most people don't. It's classified so far above normal military operations that even most generals have never heard of it. But given what's happening here, I have the authority to activate it." So Young felt a chill run down her spine. What exactly is the Unrestricted Protocol? It's what happens when our enemies force us to stop following our own laws. When they make it impossible for us to fight a clean war. When they target children and torture innocents specifically to make us break our rules. I still don't understand. Dr. Taehyun's expression became even colder. "Colonel, humanity didn't develop rules of war because we're naturally peaceful. We developed them because we know what happens when we don't have them. The unrestricted protocol is what we become when someone forces us to put those rules aside. Are you saying we should abandon the rules of engagement? I'm saying the rules of engagement are a gift we give to civilized enemies. The Zephyrians have made it clear they are not civilized. They have chosen to target children, torture innocents, and use our morality as a weapon against us. On the main screens, fresh broadcasts showed more atrocities. The Zephyrians had found a nursery full of babies and were threatening them on live video. They were making their demands clear. Complete surrender or they would start killing the smallest children first. What happens if I agree to activate this protocol? So Young asked. Help arrives. The kind of help that doesn't appear in any official records. The kind of help that uses methods we normally keep locked away. And after, the Zephyrians learn why every other species in the galaxy eventually develops rules for warfare. Why even the most aggressive civilizations eventually decide some things shouldn't be done. So, Young looked at the tactical display again. Red markers showed Zephyrian positions throughout the colony. Every single one was surrounded by civilian casualties waiting to happen. A normal military response was impossible without massive, innocent deaths. Do it, she said quietly. Dr. Taehyun nodded and began typing codes into his personal communicator. Message sent. Help is coming, Colonel, but I need you to understand something. The people who are coming, the methods they use, this isn't the humanity we show to the galaxy. This is the humanity we work very hard to keep hidden. How long until they arrive? They're already here. They've been here since before the attack started. That's how these things work. What do you mean? The unrestricted protocol teams don't wait for permission to deploy, Colonel. They wait for permission to act. There's a difference. Lieutenant Ji Hoon's voice crackled over the radio. Colonel, we're detecting a new ship entering the system. Single vessel, no identification. It's not showing up properly on sensors. Dr. Taehyun smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. That would be the righteous fury. Captain Woo Jin doesn't like to be seen unless he wants to be. Who is Captain Woo Jin? The man who explains to our enemies what happens when they force humanity to stop being human. The ship that appeared on New Busan's sensors looked wrong. It was clearly human in design, but something about its shape seemed to bend light in ways that hurt to look at directly. The hull was black, not painted black, but truly dark, as if it absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Captain Woo Jin Yoon stood on the bridge of the Righteous Fury, watching the colony burn on his screens. His face showed no emotion as he observed the Zephyrian atrocities. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations with mechanical precision, their movements too smooth and controlled to seem natural. Major Kim, Woo Jin said without turning around. Status report on civilian casualties. Major In-soo Kim looked up from his psychological warfare station. Current count shows 237 confirmed deaths, Captain. The Zephyrians are escalating their torture broadcasts every hour. They're specifically targeting children now to break morale. And our response authorization? Dr. Kang activated unrestricted protocol 17 minutes ago. All safeties are now off. Woo Jin nodded slowly. Sergeant Lee, prepare the crew for personality shift. We're going from standard operating mode to unrestricted. Sergeant Min-ho Lee pressed several buttons on his console. Throughout the ship, soft chimes began playing. The crew members stopped what they were doing and moved to small alcoves built into the walls. Each person placed a metal crown on their head and closed their eyes. Dr. Haijin Park watched from her medical station as brainwave patterns changed on her monitors. Personality modification complete, Captain. All crew members are now operating under unrestricted parameters. When the crew opened their eyes again, they looked different, not physically, but in the way they moved and spoke. The mechanical precision was gone, replaced by something more fluid and dangerous. Their faces showed expressions that hadn't been there before. Hunger, anticipation, a cold kind of joy. Much better, Major In-soo said, his voice now carrying a tone that made even his allies uncomfortable. I was getting tired of pretending to feel sorry for the enemy. Woo Jin turned to face his crew for the first time. His own transformation was the most dramatic. The calm, professional naval officer was gone. In his place stood something that looked human but felt like a predator wearing human skin. Listen carefully, he said, his voice carrying new authority. Some of you are new to this ship. Some of you volunteered after normal service. Some of you came from military prisons. All of you chose to be here knowing what it means. He walked among his crew, looking each person in the eyes. Dr. Park explained to our newest members what the unrestricted protocol actually is. Dr. Haijin stood up, her medical coat now looking more like a lab technician's uniform. The protocol exists because humanity learned a terrible truth about itself during our wars on Earth. We discovered that we are very, very good at violence. Too good. So good that we had to create rules to limit ourselves. She activated a holographic display showing brain scans. Normal human military training teaches soldiers to overcome their natural reluctance to kill. But some humans don't have that reluctance. Some humans have to be taught not to kill. We are those humans. Sergeant Min-ho laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Tell them about the conditioning, Doctor. Each crew member on this ship volunteered for psychological modification. We can switch between two personality states. In standard mode, we function as normal, law-abiding military personnel. In unrestricted mode, she gestured at the crew around her, we become what humanity was before it learned to be civilized. A young ensign raised his hand nervously. What happened to make us need this program? Captain Woo Jin answered. Earth's last global war ended not because we ran out of weapons, but because we scared ourselves. Both sides developed weapons so terrible, tactics so brutal, that even the people using them couldn't sleep at night. We won that war by becoming monsters, then spent decades learning how to be human again. Major In-soo pulled up historical files on his screen. The Beijing incident, the Australian dead zone, the thing we did to Madagascar. After the war ended, both sides agreed to bury the records and never speak of what we'd done to each other. But we kept the knowledge, Woo Jin continued. Hidden away in black projects and classified programs, we told ourselves it was for research, for understanding. Really? It was because we knew that someday someone would force us to become monsters again. Dr. Hygen activated another display. The galaxy sees our military ethics and thinks we're weak. They don't understand that those ethics aren't natural to us. They're a choice we make every single day, a choice to be better than what we could be, what we were designed to be. Sergeant Minho added quietly. The Zephyrians have made that choice impossible, Wu Jin said. They've specifically targeted our moral constraints. They're using our desire to protect innocence as a weapon against us, so we stop choosing to be good. He pressed a button on his command chair. Open communication to Zephyrian ground forces. The main screen showed the interior of the captured school. Zephyrian warriors stood among terrified children, their weapons pointed at small heads. The alien commander buzzed with satisfaction when it saw the human captain. Human vessel, it clicked. You will surrender immediately or these younglings will suffer. Your species' weakness for protecting the helpless makes this very simple. Wu Jin smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. I am Captain Wu Jin Yoon of the Earth vessel Righteous Fury. I'm calling to explain something important to you. You are in no position to explain anything, human. Surrender or watch these children die. You misunderstand, Wu Jin said calmly. I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to educate. You see, you've made a critical error about humanity. What error? You think our laws make us weak. You think our morals are flaws you can exploit. You believe we limit ourselves because we're afraid to fight properly. The Zephyrian commander buzzed with amusement. This is exactly what we think. Prove us wrong, human. Attack us. Kill your own younglings to reach us. Oh, we won't kill them, Wu Jin said. We're going to save every single child in that building. All of them will go home to their families tonight. Impossible. We have them surrounded. We have weapons pointed at them. Any attack you make will result in their deaths. Wu Jin's smile became wider. You're right. Any conventional attack would kill them. Good thing we stopped being conventional the moment you decided to target children. He turned to his crew. Sergeant Lee, deploy the nightmare gas. Major Kim, activate the fear broadcasts. Dr. Park, release the behavioral modification virus into their air supply. Captain, the Zephyrian commander's voice became less confident. What are these things you speak of? Tools we developed during our last war, Wu Jin explained conversationally. The nightmare gas makes you hallucinate your worst fears. The fear broadcast use specific sound frequencies to trigger panic responses in insect nervous systems. The virus rewrites your brain chemistry to make you incapable of harming anything smaller than yourself. These weapons are banned by galactic law. Galactic law only applies to civilized species fighting civilized wars. You abandoned civilization when you pointed weapons at children. Now you get to see what humanity looks like when we abandon it too. The Zephyrian commander was about to respond when the first effects hit. Several warriors in the school began dropping their weapons and backing away from the children, their heads shaking as if trying to clear confusing thoughts. Don't worry, Wu Jin said cheerfully. The modifications are reversible. Your warriors won't be permanently damaged. They'll just be completely incapable of hurting innocents for the next several years. We find it helps with rehabilitation. More Zephyrians began showing signs of distress. Some were swatting at things that weren't there. Others were making keening sounds of terror. The ones closest to the children were dropping their weapons and moving as far away as possible. This is impossible, the commander buzzed. These weapons, how do you deliver them so precisely? We've been here for 3 days, Wu Jin said. Did you really think you could plan an attack on a human colony without us knowing about it? We've had people in your ranks since before you left your home system. On the screen, children began running toward the exits as their captors became too confused and frightened to stop them. This is just a small demonstration, Wu Jin continued. Would you like to see what we can do to your fleet? Admiral Kyung-Soo Han watched the tactical display from his flagship as the main Zephyrian fleet approached the outer edge of the new Busan system. 43 massive warships moved in perfect formation, their insect-like hulls bristling with weapons. Intelligence said they were coming to reinforce the ground invasion and establish permanent control over human space. Communications Officer Song, the Admiral said quietly. Open a channel to the enemy fleet commander. Yujin Song worked at her station for several minutes. Sir, they're not responding to standard communication requests. Should I try other frequencies? No. Broadcast on all channels, full spectrum. Make sure every ship in their fleet can hear this. The main screen activated, showing the interior of the lead Zephyrian vessel. The alien commander was larger than the ground forces, its shell decorated with battle scars and trophies from previous campaigns. When it saw the human admiral, it began the rapid clicking that meant amusement. "Human admiral," it buzzed through the translation system. "You face the full might of the Zephyrian war fleet. 43 ships against your single vessel. Surrender now and we may allow your crew to live as slaves." Admiral Kyung-soo nodded politely. "I am Admiral Han of the Earth Defense Force. I'm not here to fight your fleet." "Wise choice. You recognize superior force when you see it. I'm here to explain something to you. Something important about humans that you don't understand." The Zephyrian commander's amusement grew stronger. "What could we possibly need to understand about your weak species?" Behind the admiral, the bridge crew continued their work with calm efficiency. Unlike the crew of the Righteous Fury, these were regular military personnel. They followed standard protocols and maintained normal human emotional responses. But there was something different in their eyes now. A hardness that hadn't been there before. "You laughed at our laws," Admiral Kyung-soo said conversationally. "In the Galactic Council chambers, your representatives found our military ethics amusing. You couldn't understand why we would limit ourselves in warfare. Because it is foolish. War is about victory, not philosophy. Let me ask you something," the admiral continued. "Do you know why humans developed military ethics in the first place?" "Because you are weak and afraid of real combat." Admiral Kyung-soo shook his head slowly. "No. We developed them because we are very, very good at real combat. Too good. So good that we had to create rules to protect our enemies from what we're capable of." He turned to Communications Officer Yoo-jin. "Show them the historical files. Classification level. Unrestricted." Images began appearing on screens throughout both fleets. Videos from Earth's last global war, showing weapons and tactics that made even hardened alien warriors stop their clicking and buzzing. Cities turned to glass. Entire populations that simply vanished overnight. Weapons that targeted specific genetic markers. Viruses that rewrote enemy DNA in real time. These records were sealed for 200 years, Admiral Kyung-soo explained. "We buried them because they showed what humans become when we stop limiting ourselves. What we did to each other when we let our true nature take control." The Zephyrian commander's voice became less confident. These are fabrications. Propaganda to frighten us. The Beijing incident alone killed 40 million people in 6 hours. Not with nuclear weapons, not with orbital bombardment. With something much worse. Something that made the survivors beg us to use regular bombs instead." More images flashed on the screens. Battlefield footage that showed human soldiers moving with inhuman speed and precision. Their faces showing expressions that belonged on predators, not people. Weapons that seemed to violate basic physics. Tactics that turned enemy strengths into weaknesses with surgical precision. "Your ground forces are learning this lesson right now," the admiral said. "Captain Woo-jin is demonstrating what happens when you force us to stop following our own rules. But he's being gentle, restrained. He's only using techniques that won't cause permanent damage." "What do you mean, gentle?" Admiral Kyung-soo activated another display. "The nightmare gas? Reversible in 72 hours. The fear broadcasts? No lasting effects. The behavioral modification virus? Wears off in a few years and actually improves most personalities long term." He paused, letting that sink in. "Those are the nice options. The ones we use when we still care about enemy welfare. You're threatening us? I'm explaining to you. Your species made a critical error. You assumed our laws were born from weakness. You thought our morals were flaws you could exploit. You believed that humans limit themselves because we're afraid of real warfare." The admiral stood up from his command chair and walked closer to the screen. "Let me tell you what human military ethics actually are. They're not limitations. They're not weaknesses. They're gifts we give to civilized enemies. Gifts? The gift of a quick death instead of a slow one. The gift of conventional weapons instead of the alternatives. The gift of being treated as soldiers instead of as targets for experimentation. The gift of having your civilians protected instead of hunted." The Zephyrian commander was quiet for a long moment. "You speak as if you have power you have not shown." "We have power we work very hard not to show. Every day, every battle, every conflict, we choose to be better than what we could be. We choose mercy over efficiency. We choose honor over victory. We choose to limit ourselves because unlimited humans are..." He gestured at the historical footage still playing. "Well, you can see what unlimited humans are." Admiral Kyung-soo returned to his command chair. "Your ground forces targeted children. They tortured civilians for entertainment. They used our morality as a weapon against us. In doing so, they made our choice for us. What choice? Whether to remain human or to become what we were before we learned to be civilized. The Admiral pressed a button on his chair. Throughout the human fleet, which the Zephyrians had counted as one ship, dozens of additional vessels began decloaking. They had been hidden in the system for days, waiting for permission to act. 43 ships, Admiral Kyung-soo noted calmly. Impressive. We brought 67, but numbers aren't really the issue here. Then what is the issue? The issue is that your species has never faced an enemy that chose to be civilized, rather than being forced to be civilized. You've never fought someone who could unleash total destruction but chose not to, until now. He activated one more display. This is the UES Prometheus. Would you like to know what it does? The ship on screen looked small and harmless compared to the massive Zephyrian warships, but something about its design was wrong in ways that hurt to look at directly. The Prometheus doesn't carry conventional weapons, the Admiral explained. It carries a single device that rewrites the quantum structure of matter within a 3-light-year radius. Everything in that area simply stops being what it was and becomes something else. That's impossible. We invented it during the war with ourselves. Used it twice before both sides agreed it was too terrible to use again. Then we locked the technology away and pretended we'd forgotten how to build it. The Zephyrian commander was making rapid clicking sounds that the translator identified as panic. You're bluffing. Communications Officer Song. Activate the Prometheus demonstration mode. Target. Empty space. Coordinates 77 Mark 4. In the distance, a section of apparently empty space suddenly filled with light. When the glow faded, a new star hung in the void where nothing had been before. We just converted vacuum energy into stellar matter, Admiral Kyung-soo said conversationally. Imagine what we could do to your ships. The entire Zephyrian fleet had stopped moving. Even their engine signatures were fluctuating as if the crews couldn't decide what to do. Now, the Admiral said, let me explain your options. 3 weeks after the Zephyrian withdrawal, the Galactic Council chambers looked very different. The same alien species filled the Great Hall, but the laughter was gone. The crystal beings stood in perfect silence, their chiming muted. The insect creatures kept their wings folded and still. Even the gas-like nebulans had settled into stable, respectful formations. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim stood at the same podium where he had been mocked just a month before. Behind him, the screen showed footage from New Busan's reconstruction. Children played in newly built parks while their parents worked to rebuild what the Zephyrians had destroyed. Every child was alive. Every family was whole. Not a single human civilian had died during the rescue operation. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Hyunwoo began, his voice carrying the same respectful tone as before. Humanity thanks you for this emergency session. We know our recent actions have raised questions about our species' true nature. The crystal delegate who had laughed so loudly before spoke with a much quieter voice. Ambassador Kim, we did not understand. When we mocked your military laws, we thought we were ridiculing weakness. We did not realize we were insulting a gift. Behind Hyunwoo, General Seung-hwan Choi stepped forward. His uniform was covered with ribbons and medals that none of the aliens recognized, but something about his presence made the entire hall feel smaller and more dangerous. The Galactic Council has requested a full explanation of recent events, General Seung-hwan said calmly. Specifically, you want to understand how humanity was able to defeat the Zephyrian swarm so completely while suffering 0 civilian casualties. He activated a holographic display showing the timeline of the conflict. The operation lasted 6 hours and 37 minutes from start to finish. All Zephyrian ground forces were neutralized without permanent harm. Their entire fleet surrendered and is currently undergoing rehabilitation in our custody. The insect delegate, who had buzzed with amusement before, now clicked nervously. General, our intelligence suggests you used weapons that violate 17 different galactic conventions. That's correct, General Seung-hwan replied without hesitation. We used weapons and tactics that are banned under civilized warfare protocols. A shocked silence filled the hall. Several alien species began rapid conversations in their native languages. However, the general continued, those protocols only apply when both sides agree to follow them. The Zephyrians specifically targeted children and tortured civilians to break our moral constraints. In doing so, they voided the civilized warfare agreement. Dr. Yoonji Lee approached the podium carrying a thick folder of documents. I've spent the last 3 weeks studying the psychological profiles of recovered Zephyrian soldiers. The results are illuminating. She opened the folder and began reading. Every single Zephyrian warrior who participated in the attack on New Busan is now undergoing voluntary psychological rehabilitation. They have all requested to remain in human custody rather than return to their homeworlds. Why? Asked one of the gas beings. Because for the first time in their lives they've experienced what it feels like to have moral constraints. The behavioral modification virus didn't just prevent them from harming innocents. It gave them the capacity for empathy, guilt, and moral reasoning. Dr. Yoonji activated another display showing brain scans. Zephyrian neural structure is naturally aggressive and territorial. They evolved without the capacity for what humans call conscience. From their perspective, mercy and kindness were literally unthinkable concepts. And now? The crystal delegate asked. Now they can think them. Many have described the experience as finally being able to see color after a lifetime of blindness. They don't want to go back to their previous mental state. General Sung Hwan took over the presentation. This illustrates a fundamental truth about human military doctrine. Our laws aren't designed to limit our own capabilities. They're designed to give our enemies a chance to remain worthy of mercy. He pressed a button and new images appeared on the screens. These showed human soldiers throughout history, in dozens of different conflicts, consistently following rules of engagement even when it put them at a disadvantage. Every time we protect enemy civilians, we give their species a chance to learn that civilians should be protected. Every time we treat prisoners with respect, we demonstrate that prisoners deserve respect. Every time we use proportional force, we show that overwhelming force should be reserved for those who truly deserve it. The Nebulan delegate swirled into a new pattern. But what happens when an enemy refuses to learn these lessons? Ambassador Hyunwoo answered. Then we stop teaching and start demonstrating. He activated one final display. It showed the current status of the Zephyrian Swarm's military forces. 43 warships, 16,000 soldiers, and 8 command stations. All currently in human custody, all undergoing voluntary rehabilitation, all requesting permanent asylum from their own species. You broke their entire military force without killing a single individual? We gave them something their species had never experienced before, General Sung Hwan explained. Choice. The ability to choose cooperation over domination. The capacity to feel remorse for their actions. The option to be better than what they were. Dr. Yoonji stepped forward again. But this represents only one outcome. Our actions could have gone very differently if the Zephyrians had chosen differently. What do you mean? Asked the crystal delegate. The weapons and tactics we used were the gentle options, the rehabilitation-focused alternatives. If the Zephyrians had continued targeting children after our warnings, she paused, looking around the hall. Well, let's just say we have other options. Less pleasant ones. The hall fell silent again. Finally, the original crystal delegate who had started the mockery spoke up. Ambassador Kim, when we laughed at your laws, we made a grave error. We thought you were showing us your weaknesses. We didn't realize you were showing us our only protection. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. Humanity spent thousands of years learning how to be civilized. We developed ethics not because we were weak, but because we discovered what happens when strong beings have no limits. Our military laws exist to protect everyone, including our enemies, from what we're capable of when those laws don't apply. And if an enemy forces you to set aside those laws, then they learn why every successful civilization eventually develops them. They discover that the most dangerous beings in the universe are not those who never learn to show mercy, but those who choose to show mercy because they know exactly what the alternative looks like. General Sung Hwan closed his presentation files. The Zephyrian swarm learned this lesson the easy way. Their soldiers are alive, healthy, and psychologically improved. Their ships are intact and will be returned when their crews complete rehabilitation. Their civilization gets a chance to evolve beyond pure aggression. What would have happened if they had learned the hard way? Asked the insect delegate. There would be no Zephyrian swarm left to learn anything. The hall remained quiet for several long minutes. Finally, the crystal delegate spoke again. What happens now? How do we prevent other species from making the same mistake the Zephyrians made? Ambassador Hyunwoo smiled, and for the first time it was a completely genuine expression. That's simple. You help us spread the word. You make sure every species in the galaxy understands what human military ethics really are, which is a gift we offer to civilized enemies, a choice we make to limit ourselves, a protection we provide to those who agree to fight within moral boundaries. He looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of every delegate, and a warning about what happens when someone forces us to stop being civilized. Dr. Yunji activated one last display. We're prepared to share our rehabilitation technology with any species that wants it. The same techniques that gave the Zephyrians the capacity for moral reasoning can be adapted for other neural structures. We can help aggressive species develop conscience. We can teach empathy to beings who never evolved it naturally. And if they refuse, then they'll have to live with the consequences of their choice, General Sung Hwan said quietly. Just like the Zephyrians almost did. As the session ended and the alien delegates filed out of the hall, conversations were happening in dozens of languages. But the tone was different now, respectful, thoughtful, and underneath it all, just a little bit afraid. Captain Wu Jin-yoon and his crew were already back in standard operating mode, their personalities restored to normal human parameters. The righteous fury had returned to its official non-existence, and its crew had undergone memory modification to help them live with what they'd done in unrestricted mode. But across the galaxy, other species were beginning to understand a fundamental truth about humanity. The humans who followed laws and showed mercy weren't the weak ones. They were the strong ones choosing to be gentle. And that choice was the only thing, standing between the galaxy and the discovery of what humans were like when they stopped choosing to be anything other than what evolution had made them. The most dangerous predator in the universe wasn't the one that couldn't learn to be civilized. It was the one that had learned and could choose to forget.